All right, we are joined now by Michael Waldron, who can we just call you the czar of Loki? Is that the proper?
Yeah, man, I'll take that. GQ called me the franchise whisperer.
Oh,
that was a nightmare for my wife, for my family and friends. That one got passed around on some text threads.
Loki. These are always easy when we don't have to really say what it is. People know what Loki is. For your context, this is airing after episode 2, but we'll toe the line on spoilers. We'll talk broadly. We've seen episode 2 already. We got to see the first 2. First off, obviously, congrats. I'm sure this was a nerve-wracking process. There had to be a little bit of nerves when this thing first drops and all the pressure. You've already seen 2 Marvel series come out. We'll get into, I don't want to say culprit, but we are very much part of the theories and
the Redditors.
We got duped by Paul Bettany. Paul Bettany fucked us. That's the best way to
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. We still love him. But yeah, how are you feeling now that at least one is out? One is out into the wild.
Dude, it feels good, man. I mean, the response has been positive. People seem to dig it. You know, it's like you never know. You have a sense of like, all right, I think this is good. I'm also the least objective person in the whole process, probably, except for my mom. But it's cool, and it's like people like the first episode right out the gate. I knew we were taking a chance by basically the action scene in that first episode is 2 guys sitting across a table from one another talking. I was like, this is our, this is the meat of this episode, because to me that was like, that's Loki's superpower, is running his mouth. And so Marvel was cool. They let me write like a 14-page dialogue scene, which was really fun for me. And people love it. So yeah, man, it's exciting now. It's like, all right, let's one down, 5 to go.
I like that you mentioned that dialogue scene, because you've mentioned how some of your inspirations include stuff like Inglourious Basterds, among many other things. And that's almost the scene that it reminded me of the bar scene in Inglourious Basterds, where it's just this a very tense dialogue moment for 2 people, or in the Inglourious Basterds case, multiple, are just having this conversation. And there's this like growing air of like tenseness to it. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. There were our writer's room. We watched that scene down in the basement, the opening scene, where Christoph Waltz is interrogating Shoshana's family is another great one. Also, the scene in The Master, obviously, where Philip Seymour Hoffman is like processing Joaquin Phoenix. That was a big one. I think you can see that one's fingerprints on there. So yeah, who can I rip off, man? That's which of the great filmmakers can I pull from?
The opening has been obviously well received, like we were saying, but like, is there now an episode? We obviously getting 6 full episodes. Is there an episode right now you're waiting? Like, I cannot wait for people to watch episode 4. I cannot wait for people to watch 5. Is there one where you're like, there's going to be a moment in this where people are going to lose their minds? Like
when Mephisto shows up.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be the fucking mic drop. Truly, I've said this in interviews. I really wanted every episode to stand alone. Like it's like The Leftovers. You can always be like, it was that episode of The Leftovers, or I feel like Mad Men's great about that. And I really wanted every episode of Loki to be like, it's that episode. So I love all of my children equally, but I'm excited for 3 only because critics haven't seen 3. It's like reactions to 1 and 2 are out there in the world. I'm excited to see, all right, when we really break new ground beyond the second week, what people think, and it does just ramp up. It just in my opinion gets cooler and cooler.
You've joked a little bit, well, probably a lot at this point, about doing time travel stuff. It's a pain in the ass. You're also working with something that is, I would imagine, behind the scenes, fairly complex, and to the point where people love to just know the behind the scenes details of not even just like, oh, what's happening next? Just like, what is it like to construct this? Like along the way of writing, how many times did you catch yourself in a situation where either you notice something that you're like, that's inconsistent, or I need to change that, or Marvel drops the hammer, they're like, no, that's not going to work with what we have ahead.
So Marvel, all the producers, all the like people who you don't necessarily see, the executives who work kind of under Kevin Feige there, they are all geniuses in their own right. That's part of why Marvel is so great. And they're all assigned to their own projects. And that's the thing that they're like the Marvel quarterback of. And they're there for that kind of like quality control, to make sure I'm not, putting Batman in it. Like, or is the joke that I keep making. But like, so ideally they're there to stop us before we blow a full day in the writer's room, going down a path on something that just isn't going to work out, and they're the keepers of kind of they know what's happening on other projects and everything. And those guys, they it's great that there's a reason why the MCU is cool, because it's just a lot of good people working there. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely times that just with the time travel of it all, where it's just, you'll spend a whole day, you'll like come up with a bunch of shit where you're like, I'm such a genius. God, we're crushing it. This show's so good. And then like on your way out the door, like my assistant will be like, but what about that? And all of a sudden everybody's just like, fuck. And it just, because you just realize like, well, that unravels the whole sweater, and it's just like, that's a day's worth of work sort of down the drain. You have to accept that that's part of the process on a big complex show like that. I learned that from Harmon on Rick and Morty. It's like even ideas that get tossed or flushed away, they still exist. They're still on a whiteboard in somebody's head somewhere. So it's like, it's crazy what ends up coming back, even if you have to dump it for a while.
Is there like a giant timeline somewhere in those offices? Like, do you have like you pull like a note card, you're like, okay, I got it right here about even just future
it's like a
stuff?
blackjack.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's kind of in everybody's head, I guess. It's like, that's the nice thing about where everybody's a fan too. So it's not like homework to watch the MCU and like understand what's happening. There's always that like, well, wait a minute, what year did Avengers happen? What iPhone was out? Why, like you and specifically the dates, like the years and everything. You just want to be consistent about that in a show about time travel. The iPhone being out does not matter. I realized as I said that, sudden people be like, oh my God, what does the iPhone have to do with the rest of Loki?
How much though of like future stuff do you really know or have to be careful of? Because you also, and we'll talk about it a little bit, but like there you have a movie as well coming out next year. So I feel like you're a little more immersed than maybe someone who's just doing one thing right now, where you really have to kind of look down the line, I feel like, right? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, you definitely know what's out there. You're also kind of pushing to like every project, like you're like, all right, we're the varsity team. Like, let's crush it. Like, we want to be the best show. We want to be the best movie. We want to be the most vital to the MCU and everything. So it's like, you're always trying to push your narrative to shape the future of this thing as much as possible. In Loki, I didn't know when we were really conceiving the show that I was going to be writing Dr. Strange too.
Right.
That came after most of the writing was done. So that was a lot of like, well, we'll write this stuff and it'll be somebody else's problem. Like that's the fun. If it's a mess, who gives a shit? It's not my mess. But then it is.
I think one of the most perfectly Marvel things about the show is probably Miss Minutes. That's the ability for what the MCU can do of take a very serious, complex thing, but then have a cartoon clock explain, and like buzzwords that are very clearly known, like Nexus, multiverse, just like the ultimate buzzwords. We have our podcast, our mascot is actually very similar to Miss Minutes. We have Really, who is a film, but he evades taxes. He doesn't pay his taxes.
Yeah,
so ours
similar
is
powers.
Neither does Miss Minutes. Yeah, that's we should
entering that. That's in the canon now. You just said you saying that. Just put that in.
You see, when you exist outside of time, there's a lot of loopholes. It's what year would she even pay him for?
Yeah, true.
It's funny. Like, and I've talked about this to the point that it's me talking about it is probably as boring as I was afraid it would be writing it in the show. But just the process of explaining time travel in a way that makes sense to the audience, but doesn't bog them down and doesn't make them feel like they're going to school watching the show. You got to kind of like get it all out there so they get it and then just move on. And that's, I mean, I don't know. I just, obviously I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't sort of inspired by Mr. DNA from Jurassic Park. But that's absolutely what bureaucracies do. I think they dress up their like real heavy-handed mythology, dogma, or whatever in these very like lunchboxy sort of wrappers and just present it to you, and you're like, oh, that sounds, I might get disintegrated, but that sounds pretty nice.
Yeah, they have that office at the IRS as well, which is why he really doesn't want to go. It's the same sort of feel to it.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned a lot in different interviews just about that airtight nature of just time travel in general. Have you had any complaints so far about the writing process, about having to try and write with that as such an overarching sort of limiter in a sense, and same time like freer because you can do so many things with it?
How many tweets and DMs so far? Yeah.
Tweets from me, who I mean, people's in general seem pretty happy. You know, I think that there's obviously, it's like people are like, well, what does this mean retroactively for the entire MCU and everything? And I think the answer to that is you just keep watching. You know, it's I tried to be thinking of all that stuff, and you know, you just want to keep building the world and expanding it outward, and if you can make people look at stuff that came before in different ways, that's cool.
There was one question going around recently, and maybe you can answer, maybe you can't, if Peggy Carter was in the background in episode 1.
I saw that. Listen, I love the speculation, man. I love it. I'm here for it.
I love that's perfect answer. Perfect.
You may not have seen the scene. You should go back and see it. Maybe you can. Yeah. Then you can let us. Yeah.
I need to watch this show.
So is there going to be any Arrested Development season 4 type moments where like stuff's going to happen in the background that we're not going to see later on?
I don't know. That's a good, I guess that's a good question. You guys tell me when it's all said and done. I mean, I think that we had the benefit of, it's a show about time travel. So just right away, it's like, all right, what Easter eggs can you put in everything? You know, it's like, let's say you end up with Josta and stuff like that, like all that cool little stuff. I do think the show, it's a show where you can pause pretty much anywhere and be like, oh, cool. If it's not something that's going to blow your mind because it's some big revelation, the show looks really cool. Kazra, our production designer, just did an amazing job, and it just looks awesome.
You and I talked the other day. I sent you a quick note saying like how great this was, and I was pumped to have you on the show. And you mentioned you were excited to talk about that Loki is so angsty because he, like you, is an Atlanta sports fan.
Correct. Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, a lot of deleted scenes of him watching the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl. Us us blowing it against the Dodgers last year, the Georgia Alabama national championship game. There was like 20 extra pages of all of that in the time theater.
Him just ranting about like, how did we sack Tua and still lose? I just don't get it.
How did he get so wide of four? Yeah, I know. They were at midfield.
He's secretly Arthur Blank. He's secretly Ted Turner. I would love him being part of the Atlanta mythology in some way or shape or form.
Well, just keep watching. Just keep watching, man. You never know.
Do you like with your role and like anyone on like, was there a moment, and I'm not even talking MCU Easter eggs, like I feel like a lot of people, like we recently talked to Zack Snyder. He fucking loves putting stuff in there that has nothing to do with the movie. Was there anything for you? And you don't have to reveal what it is. Like if there is one, we were like, that's an Easter egg. I have to get in there. It has nothing to do with Marvel. I just want it there to even tell my friends. Like I got it in. I slipped it in there.
That's probably, it probably depends on the project. Something like Marvel that belongs to so many people, it's like, it's a Marvel show, so it's a little bit harder for me to like put Loki in a Braves hat. Like, it's like, how am I going to explain that to Kevin Feige? There's he does love hats. There's some little stuff here and there, that maybe I slipped in. But then like Heels, it's probably on Stars, a more personal project, that takes place in reality. There's more opportunities for stuff like that. But you want it, something like Loki, it's like, I hope that nobody's really seeing or feeling me in that project. In fact, it's like that one really, you want people to just be swept away in.
Mm-hmm. We mentioned a little bit before about being duped by Paul Bettany. And again, I'm still hoping that he actually liked my outfit that day. But like, what do you feel about the whole just sort of theories hype behind every show now, where like they go on Reddit or Twitter, whatever, and they like make up all these like theories and opinions and all these ideas. And when they don't come to fruition, they feel disappointed, because from the outside looking in, it's like cool to have this many people that's invested in your show where they're like making their own sort of mythology to it. But at the same time, like when they get mad at a show for not living up to what they thought was going to happen, that just sucks,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I love that shit. Like we knew, and I talked about this with our writers' room. You're making a Marvel series, like it was starring Loki. It's going to release weekly. So, and this was even before WandaVision came out, but you just knew, understanding the internet, the chatter was going to be crazy every week. People are going to be theorizing. That's part of what's exciting about this for people. People don't get to halfway through Endgame, get on Reddit and be like, holy shit, is Thanos from the past going to show up and fight everybody in the present? Like, that's what's fun about this. I hope people speculate. That's what was cool about watching Lost back in the day, and like, so many of the shows that I grew up loving. So I don't know, man. I hope people keep speculating. That's part of the fun of watching this stuff. I hope we deliver something that surprises people. Maybe you can't please everybody, and sometimes people are going to maybe have ideas that were that were better, or could have been cooler. They're going to think their ideas were better or cooler. That's cool. That's their thing. This is the show that we made and the way we made it. But like, I like that people are just being creative on their own, thinking about all that shit. That's why these sorts of shows are really unique.
So was there a moment maybe during, like, because you already joked about Mephisto, you had a devil stained glass thing, which I know you've also joked about that. You're like, that was not like, I mean, that again, this was done before WandaVision. Was there a pause at all during the WandaVision? Because backlash isn't the right word. People liked WandaVision, but there was people say, "Where's Mephisto? Where's this?" Again, Paul Bettany just pulled one over us, pantsed us.
What did he say? Exactly. What did he say?
He said
It's a monster cameo.
He said a cameo. He acted with somebody he's never acted with in his career.
Oh yeah, that was with you guys. That he. Well, yeah.
He was. It was a bit. And Paul Bettany, the charisma on Paul Bettany, it just. We took it hook, line, and sinker. And even then, like when they revealed the other vision, they're like, guys, I think that's what he meant. I refuse to fucking believe it. Like, no, he wouldn't do that to us. This guy we just met, he would never do that.
Right.
But was there ever a moment for you, though, where you went, oh, because again, you were further in this process already. It's not like you then made this show. Was there anything that you said, maybe we, or you're just so you loved the speculation so much it just doesn't matter? Yeah.
I mean, hopefully we deliver here and there. I don't know what people will see what our particular Mephisto becomes, and who we let down. but right now I'm confident. Our team was, we knew we were confident in our surprises and in those executions and everything. And I think WandaVision, that I hate the only bad thing about all that is if it just detracted from anybody's enjoyment of what a awesome story about Wanda it was. That's the only, just remembering that these are at their best. I think they're stories about these characters, and just seeing Santa Claus show up just because you saw Santa Claus isn't going to make the show good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
One more quick thing on Loki, because then I want to try to cram in a few things about your other stuff. We got this question. It's more of a devil's advocate question. I'm not sure you can say much on it. And keep in mind, we've also seen, I guess when this airs, people have seen the first 2 episodes. Some people have asked if the TVA lessens or invalidates previous events, because did this mean the timekeepers made sure the events of Endgame happened? Does it take out the element of they really had to conjure it up?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw a little bit of that online. I think those are the right questions to be asking.
Mm-hmm.
That means
so you gave us a story answer, not like a nuts and bolts. You're like, that's the keep watching answer.
Yeah, that means if you're wondering that, you're along for the ride. Isn't that exactly what Loki's wondering? Isn't that exactly what he's frustrated about? So hopefully I didn't ruin the MCU, but if you're relating to our protagonist, that's also a good thing.
Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. You jumped on the project, like you said, not initially. Rewrites. I know you've mentioned too about the types of rewrites, and you kind of took what there was already, but you sort of went in fresh. But the impact for this movie, there's a lot of chatter actually online this weekend about it. They're saying, "Oh, Spider-Verse." It's not called Spider-Verse, but the Spider-Man movie, which many liken to Spider-Verse. That's the assumption there. Wink, wink, right. Nod, nod. But many have said, let's not forget, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is a movie that the impact appears to be potentially rather large. Is that something you can touch on at all? People say there's an assumption that it has the word multiverse in it. And we just heard from your show, multiverse is nothing to fuck with. That's a big deal.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's not My Dinner with Andre. It's not. It's not. It's. But maybe, I don't know. Maybe a little more like that than people might have expected. Yeah. Look, man, it's Sam Raimi. That's what I keep. It's Sam Raimi making a movie called Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. Of course, it's huge. We wanted it. I approached it. I approached that when I came on. Same thing as Loki. Let's make this the best MCU movie. That was my hope. As far as I'm concerned, I said this to one of our producers early on. All right, Sam Raimi's directing this movie. The guy made Spider-Man 2. You could very easily argue it's the best superhero movie ever made. I owe it. I owe it to him. Like this. Why couldn't this be the best superhero movie ever? That's who knows. We get there, but I like starting from that place of like, look, let that be your ambition, and will it be big? Will it have ramifications? I mean, we'll see.
I think one of the big selling points for this movie is that it's going to be the MCU truly like dipping their toes into the horror genre. And were you and Sam sort of given any horror boundaries? Like we've talked a little bit about like where they were at red tape wise, but like, was there any point where they're like, yeah, okay, you can disembowel someone, but you can't show the intestine come out. Yeah, you can do this, but you can't do that.
Yeah, Sam and I, we were really going through, all right, large intestine versus small intestine. Yes. What can a 12-year-old handle seeing? I mean, I think, yes, absolutely. We leaned on Sam's horror expertise to make something that was thrilling, that was scary. I think that, Sam knows how to do something that's scary without necessarily being gory. You look at the hospital room scene attack with Doc Ock's tentacles in Spider-Man 2. I mean, that's so straight up B-movie horror. But it's not necessarily super violent and everything. But yeah, I mean, look, we were trying to push the boundaries there for sure.
We won't do we have a few minutes left. We won't do the Star Wars song and dance with you because I will say, it's not like you give much substance on it, but my favorite part of the interviews that I've seen you do the last couple of weeks and days is you just don't have much to say about Star Wars because it's so early on in the process. I mean, how early is my question though? Like, do you have a rough idea of what it's going to be about, or is it truly like you're like, guys, I just know I'm doing a Star Wars with Kevin Feige?
I think it's going to be in space. It will be space related.
Okay,
that's
taking a note for the clickbait.
Oh, we lose him. He's back. Uh-oh. Kevin Feige pulled the plug.
Did you guys hear me? Did you guys lose me? Am I back?
Oh, I got you.
There we go.
Okay.
Oh my God, I love that. Yeah, I hit the buffer button every time somebody asks about Star Wars.
We interviewed Oti Fabenle way like kind of during pandemic before Black Widow stuff really came out, and he mentioned something and his lights went out in his apartment when he said it, and we said, well, that's Feige just pulled.
That's he knows. Yeah, no, look, it's in space. That's been the big breakthrough, and that just identifying that is a big step forward. You
need a joke answer, by the way, for this question. I think you're gonna need to come up with a fake story.
Okay.
A fake joke.
Yeah.
And we have it for you. We have some pitches for you.
All right,
if you want to hear them.
Let's hear it. Let's go.
Okay. My first one, a musical biopic on Max Rebo and the Jizz Whalers. That's idea number one. I think that has legs to it. Idea number two, a robot horror movie, and the bad guy's a robot who has knives for hands, but his name is /ER. So his name is Slasher. I think that has legs too.
Okay.
And then something similar to Death of Stalin, if you've seen it, where it's just Death of Palpatine and how all of his cronies handle his death.
Which death? The first one or the second one?
True. First death.
Leave
some meat on the bone. You can do a sequel. All right, great. Those are good. Look, there's
a character you need to use too.
Yes.
The most criminally underused character in Star Wars history, because again, this is no disrespect to the great George Lucas, but his insistence on inserting a diner owner into Attack of the Clones.
Oh, Dexter Jester.
Oh yeah.
Now you've stumbled upon. That's actually what the movie. It's Dexter Jester Origins. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be very cool.
There's so much potential, and also if there's a need, and I don't know if you've talked to our good buddy and coworker Robbie Fox yet, but if there's a need for 3 podcasters in the Star Wars universe, you just we are experts, so you can let us know.
I would love that. I just saw Robbie tweet that he wants to play a protocol droid. So
he has the build for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
If there's ever two frumpy white bearded males in the Star Wars universe, that you've got that as well.
There's a few. Those guys seem to die in X-wing cockpits quite a
lot
bit.
True. Porkin's origin story. There we go.
Yeah. I was about to say.
The last thing here, and then we'll let you go. The last thing I just want to know, and if you have any maybe expansion on this, I read something that actually this I thought the best thing that I read in any interview you've done or anything you've said is you were asked if you thought you would get this job, and you said something pretty cool that typically when you hear that, you hear like the aloof Hollywood, like, oh, I never thought I'd get it. I went in and didn't even really do a great job, but you said no. You go about you said, no, I was going to get it. Like, that's just your mindset, whether it's crazy or not. You went into it and you said, I'm going to get it. And you kind of got it. And I feel like we don't hear that a lot from someone in your show, which in my opinion is fucking cool to hear.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's, that was my approach with it. I try to be confident. I try to almost write competitively. I don't know. I'm a sports fan. It's if I can't be an athlete, I guess like I'll just be a screenwriter instead. I mean, if I can't play professional baseball, I'll do this. But maybe, hopefully, I try to have that mentality of like, look, visualize the shot, so to speak, and especially in the case of Loki, I was confident in my idea. And it was a world I was comfortable in and everything. But that's not to say that I didn't, I wasn't shitting my pants walking out of that pitch. Let's not fool ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. You know what? If you conquer the multiverse and time travel, that should count as an Atlanta sports win. That should just count as a champion.
I was about to say, do we get we get a ring for that?
A rafter up in the rafters, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
You pan down from Matt Ryan and up there, it's just Loki hanging.
Right. Right. We'll get a parade.
Thank you so much, man. Good luck with the rest of this and Dr. Strange. And anytime you want to hop on, we don't even. I would even put a ban on Marvel. We'll talk about anything else.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, fellas, it's just great to meet y'all. Great to talk to y'all. Thank you.
Hopefully we talk again very soon. Thank you, man.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Sam.